One time, I was getting to purchase a TV on Craigslist. This was a long time prior, but I would browse Craigslist at work all the time back at that point. A few times, I got truly great bargains or things for gratis. You never truly knew what you would discover there, but you too had to be exceptionally cautious. So, I found this truly great bargain on a decent TV. I was within the showcase for one, and the advertisement looked legit. The cost was cheap, but not so cheap that it would make me ponder on the off chance that it was as well great to be genuine. The pictures of the TV showed up to be in somebody's home. I responded to the advertisement and said that I would like to purchase the TV on the off chance that it was still available. Inside an hour, I got a contact back from the seller saying that it was accessible. It was a lady who said her title was Delight. She gave me an address and told me to come over the following night to purchase the TV. I looked up the address, and it showed up to be a house in a neighborhood that was possibly 10 minutes absent. So, the another day I got money and drove to the address. I stopped on the side of the street before the house in what showed up to be a normal neighborhood. I think it was approximately 7:00 p.m. When I thumped on the entryway, it was rapidly replied by a lady. She looked to be in her 30s and was almost normal tallness with dull hair. She said hello there and welcomed me interior. I ventured into what looked to be the living room of the house. There were boxes around and stuff as in case perhaps they were moving. There truly wasn't that much furniture, and Bliss said too bad that it was a mess. I said it was fine. She at that point told me that the TV was in her room. She at that point driven me to the passage and ceased and opened the entryway to the room. She said the TV was in there, and I ventured interior. When I did, I taken note that the room showed up to be totally purged, in spite of the fact that, and right after I got interior, the entryway pummeled closed behind me. It all happened so quick. I looked around, and there was no TV in there. I turned back and saw that Delight had closed the entryway on me. She hadn't indeed entered the room. I strolled over and attempted opening the entryway, but it was bolted from the exterior. It was so peculiar. I thumped on the entryway and inquired Bliss what was going on, but she did not reply me. I kept attempting the entryway for a diminutive or two, and it fair wouldn't open. At that point, I was hollering for someone to open the entryway, but was getting no reaction. After realizing that wasn't working, I looked around the room. It was a little room and was totally purged. There was actually no furniture at all. I got out my phone and attempted calling my companion, but I was getting no flag in there. I thought that was abnormal. I attempted opening the entryway and calling for offer assistance once more, but it was clear that no one was progressing to react to me. I looked around the room pondering what on soil was going on. A few minutes into this, I began to listen clamours coming from exterior the room. It appeared like they were coming from the living room range. It was Delight and the sound of a man's voice. I couldn't tell what they were saying, but I could just hear that they were talking to each other. I shouted once more, but got no reaction. After that, I went over to the window and attempted to open it, but for a few reasons, it wouldn't budge. This irritated me, and I went back over to the entryway and began slamming on it as difficult as I seemed. I needed to break the entryway down. At that point, I listened a man's voice shouting at me to halt from down the passage. I didn't know what these individuals were able of. I did halt, but fair for a minute. At that point, I took up my phone and found my cautions. I turned my volume all the way up and began playing the foremost irritating caution clamour. At that point, I put my phone at the distant side of the room. I at that point strolled over and stood fair behind the entryway. Inside likely 30 seconds, I listened someone strolling towards the room. At that point, they got right exterior the entryway. The entryway at that point opened, and a man strolled in. He turned and to begin with begun going towards my phone, making all the clamour. I came out from around the corner and ran past him, clearing out the room. He attempted getting me at the final moment, but I scarcely slipped by him. When I ran out of the room, I went down the corridor. When I have to be the living room, I saw Bliss standing there. She sort of attempted to halt me, but I was going as well quick and got around her as well. By presently, the man had begun to run after me. I opened at the entryway, and when I was doing so, Delight snatched at my arm. I got out the entryway, in spite of the fact that they were both running towards me, and I sprinted for my car, and fortunately still had my keys on me. I opened my car, got interior, and sped absent from there. Presently, tragically, I left my phone, so I couldn't quickly call the police. I halted at the primary gas station that I saw, went interior, and inquired the worker to call the police. They knew to the gas station, and after talking with the police, we went back to the house. They recouped my phone on the side of the road a square up. When they went to the house, no one was there. I found out that those individuals did not really live within the domestic, and some person else had been leasing it. So, I do not know in case those two were ever caught. When I looked, the Craigslist post was gone. I know that I'm never utilising Craigslist once more after that. For a small bit of foundation to this story, I live in a calm neighbourhood. It's not within the centre of no place, and we have neighbours, but everyone contains a small bit more arrive. I would say most properties are approximately 2 or 3 sections of land huge. I live with my spouse, but when this took put she was out of town with her best companion. So I had wrapped up mowing the lawn, and I saw that I got a content message from a modern number on my phone. I had no thought as to who it was. The content said the individual was from Craigslist, and they needed to know in the event that they seen come over. Presently, I have never utilised Craigslist sometime recently in my life, and I was lovely beyond any doubt my spouse hadn't either. I texted back saying that it was the wrong number, and I didn't utilise Craigslist. Inside a brief time, I got a reaction which was my correct address. At that point, they said this is often your address, right? I was truly creeped out when I examined it, and I didn't know how to react. I called my spouse and inquired her on the off chance that she had any thought what this can be, but she didn't know. So I didn't react to the number, trusting that it was possibly a joke or something. A few hours went by, and then I got another content from this number. This time the content said, "So can I come over or what?" I reacted saying, "No, do not come over, I have nothing for deal." I did not get a reaction for a where is, not until around 10:00 that night. There was then a content message from the same number saying I'm here. This one truly creeped me out. I texted back saying, "Who are you?" The reaction was that they were from Craigslist, which befuddled me indeed more. But it was time to see in the event that this fellow was all conversation, or in the event that he actually showed up. I moved out into the living room and looked out of my front window. The neighbourhood typically gets exceptionally dull at night and does not have road lights, so I couldn't truly see much. I wasn't taking note any cars in my carport or on the street or anything. I went over and sat back down on the love seat within the family room where I had been. That room was absent off of the living room. Lightly like 10 seconds after sitting down, I got another content. It said, "Check the front window." I got up and strolled into the living room. As before, long as I ventured into it, I saw this man standing right exterior of the living room window. He was twistedly gazing at me with these wide eyes. It was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen, and I did not recognize the fellow at all. I called the police right at that point, and there. The fellow kept standing there for another miniature or so, not moving. At that point, all of a sudden he fair turned and ran off sprinting out of my locate. The cops came out and looked all around. The fellow had run absent, in spite of the fact that, and was gone. I blocked the number and checked out the front window a few more times after the police cleared out, but he didn't come back. Gratefully, I haven't seen or listened from the man since at that point. It's still a huge riddle to me in spite of the fact that. How did he get my address, and who precisely was he? I truly have no thought. I was attempting to offer my 2007 Mercury Sailor. It was in beautiful great shape, but had a parcel of miles, and was kind of ancient. In general, it ran exceptionally well, and was a great car. I'd chosen to list it on Craigslist, since I'd had encounter buying cars there sometime recently. When I had utilised Craigslist within the past, it had gone beautiful well. So, I took a few pictures of the car, and after that recorded it. The following day I didn't get any intrigue at all, but on the moment day I got a reaction to the advertisement. The text message came from a man saying that his title was Al, which he needed to purchase the car. He appeared lovely sure, almost outright absent. I was inquiring a beautiful sensible cost, so I gave him my address to come and see at it. Presently, I lived in a loft building. I didn't think it was an enormous bargain to grant the address, since there were a few buildings within the complex. My car was as of now stopped out within the stopping parcel, and the fellow would have no way of knowing which loft was mine. So, I inquired Al when he was free, and he said he may come by the following day after work at 9. 0 p.m. I said affirm, and after that I cleaned out the car and got it prepared for offering. The taking after night, I cleared out my flat building and went to my car within the stopping part. Al appeared up in no time after and parked nearby. He got out, and I met him by my sailor. He was a huge fellow with parts of tattoos, likely around 250 pounds and 6 feet tall. After assembly, I appeared Al the car, and he looked around at it. After a few minutes, he inquired to take it for a test drive. I went with him, and Al drove the car around a piece and down a few adjacent roads. I keep in mind that he said he preferred it, and it appeared fine. At that point, I was truly considering that I was aiming to offer the car that night. After the test drive, we returned to my loft complex, and he stopped the car in a space where it had been some time recently. But at that point, after we got out of the car, Al Fair said that he would think approximately it. I was disillusioned since it appeared like he was progressing to buy it before, but I fair said affirm and at that point said bye to him. That's when Al inquired me in case he might utilise my washroom speedy. This seemed sketchy. Why did he think it would be a firm with me for him to utilise my lavatory? I said no much obliged and started walking away. To me, it appeared like it may well be a few sort of setup. I didn't need this fellow coming into my loft. He was still kind of standing around by my car, in spite of the fact that my loft building had a side entryway and a front entryway. The side entryway was not exceptionally distant absent, so I chosen to walk to the front. I cleared out Al standing there and headed interior. I was kind of anxious that he was aiming to take after me, but when I cleared out and got to the front entryways, I looked back and didn't see him at all. This made me feel superior, and I entered the building. When I got interior, I turned to the correct, and after that entered the lift. I took it up to the 3rd floor, which was the level my flat was on. When I arrived, I stepped off and began strolling to the cleared out. But when I did, I saw the entryway at the conclusion of the corridor open, that driven to a stairwell. I saw Al entering the corridor. What was he doing here? At first, I began going towards my entryway, but at that point saw Al going towards me. I rapidly stopped and then turned and started walking in the inverse heading. At that point, I began to listen Al start to run in my course. So I began sprinting to the conclusion of the passage. When I made it there, I went into the stairs on the other side and ran down. As I was going down the stairs, I listened Al enter the stairwell and proceed to chase me. At that point, I went into the underground parking carport underneath the building. When I got down there, I ran over it to the other conclusion of the building. I had amplified my lead on Al a small bit. I listened him get to the stopping carport and keep chasing me though. Then I kneed to the stairs on the other side and ran up them to the ground level. At that point, cleared out through the side entryway. After I was out of the building, I ran to my car and got interior. At that point, I fair cleared out and drove absent. I called the police, whereas driving off, and told them around the man. I drove around the streets nearby for many minutes, and after that returned. When I did, Al's car was still there, and he was not interiored. The police got their fare a few of minutes afterward. I didn't go back inside the building until they did, and when they did, they really found Al endeavouring to break into another apartment. So, it turns out he was never curious about buying my car. I figure he was fair getting to attempt to ransack me or something. I have a Craigslist frightfulness story that I would like to share. This ought to moreover serve as a caution to anyone utilising these sorts of websites. So I was as of late offering my ancient tablet a couple of a long time back. It was a MacBook Master, so I knew that I might get better than average cash for it. The computer demonstrate was still to some degree unused and mine worked exceptionally well. I fair had to urge a modern one for work, and I utilise it each day. So anyways, I recorded the ancient one on Craigslist for $1,000. I know typically a part of cash, but it was really worth somewhat more. Inside 24 hours of posting the advertisement online, I got a reaction. It was a content from somebody saying that they needed to purchase the tablet. I told them that the cost was $1,000 cash and made beyond any doubt that they were firm with it. In case they arrange with me, I might go down a small bit, but I truly didn't need to offer it for much less than $1,000. The individual said they were great with $1,000 in spite of the fact that so I recommended that we meet someplace in open. I knew way better than to deliver out my address or anything like that. Well, the individual recommended Walmart, and I said yes, since I knew that Walmart could be exceptionally open put with a parcel of individuals. What they said another ought to have made me not go through with it in spite of the fact that the individual said they may as it were meet at 10 p.m. or afterward. They claimed that they worked overnights, and this was the as it were conceivable time. It appeared scrappy to me, but I speculated that it was possible. At last, I inquired their title, and I presented myself. I was told his title was Derek, so I knew it was a fellow, and I inquired him what he looked like so I would know it was him. He said he was normal tallness, and had dim hair. That didn't truly limit it down much, but I figure I did have an essential portrayal. After that, we concurred on 10, 15 the another night at Walmart. So the following night I appeared up in the blink of an eye after 10 o'clock. I stopped sort of within the centre of the stopping parcel. By presently Walmart was exceptionally calm, and they closed at 11 o'clock, I accept. I texted Derek letting him know that I was there. He didn't react for a whereas though. I waited and held up and soon got baffled. At like 10:30 he at long last reacted and said that he would be there in almost 15 minutes. I was irritated, but in case he bought my computer, it would be worth it. So I held up persistently and fair did stuff on my phone. More time went by in spite of the fact that, without further ado, after 11 o'clock, I was approximately to take off when Derek finally texted me saying that he was there. He at that point said that he was at the back of the stopping part. I looked around, but I couldn't see much from where I was. Enthusiastic to offer the portable workstation as of now, I drove more distant to the back of the stopping part. There were a few arbitrary cars spread out, and I didn't know which one was Derek. I couldn't tell in the event that anyone was interior any of them, but most showed up to be Purge. So I fair kind of stopped in a random spot within the back, and after that inquired him once more where he was. He did not instantly react to me. At that point, out of no place, I saw this car drawing nearer. I knew that had to be Derek, but when it got closer, I noticed that the driver was wearing a dark ski veil. At that point, I saw somebody within the traveller situate, and they were moreover wearing a ski mask. I saw someone within the back situate as well, and they were moreover wearing a ski veil. They pulled up right into the stopping space following to me. I fair drove absent when I saw that. The car begun to take after me to begin with, but when we made it to the front of the stopping lot, there was really a police car before the Walmart. When I saw it, I drove straight for it. I at that point taken note the car behind me making a total U-turn within the limit Walmart stopping walkway. I proceeded over to the police car as it were to see that it showed up to be Purge. It worked, in spite of the fact that, and the folks were gone. I drove domestic, and at that point blocked the number after that. At that point, I took my portable workstation off of Craigslist and recorded it on eBay instead. I'm a male, and this happened generally to a long time back. I was offering my ancient phone on Craigslist after getting a modern one. There was nothing off base with the ancient phone, and it was as it were too a long time ancient. I figured there would be a great showcase for it, so I recorded it on Craigslist. Presently I was debating between eBay, Facebook Commercial Center, or Craigslist. Clearly, I ended up choosing Craigslist. The cost I was inquiring was lovely great. I didn't care almost making a bunch of cash off it. I truly fair needed to offer the phone quick. After posting it, I think inside some hours, I got a text message with respect to the phone. Someone told me that they were curious about buying it. I reacted to them and said that it was available and they might purchase it as before long as they needed. After texting back and forth a bit longer, I accumulated that it was a lady whose name was Molly. We organised to meet up the taking after day exterior of a neighbourhood strip shopping centre. It was, I think, located roughly midway for us both, so it was a great assembly point. The following day, I took my phone and drove to the area to offer it. When I got there, everything went as arranged. Molly appeared up and bought the phone from me. At that point, we both went our isolated ways. Within the experience, everything appeared typical. We didn't conversation the entire parcel, but I didn't take note anything interesting almost Molly at all. Over the following few days, things were fine, but at that point Molly started to content me. She was texting me, telling me to come over, and after that inquiring in case she may come to my put. This came moderately out of no place. In truth, to begin with, I thought she must have the off-base number. That's until I saw her specify my title. I cruel. We were not hanging out. I was fair offering her my iPhone. That was the as it were time I saw her, and I too did not happen to be fascinated by her. But indeed, in case I was, this was not the way to go almost it. She sent almost 4 or 5 writings inside an hour of each other late one night. I thought perhaps she was inebriated, which clarified the behavior, but she at that point texted me the following morning as well, once more saying that she needed to come over. I told her that I had a sweetheart. I didn't, but I fair needed her to take off me alone. She said that didn't matter. At that point, she proceeded to content me as on the off chance that we were best companions or something, saying what's up and inquiring what I was doing. I was still exceptionally confounded by all of this. When it proceeded for another day, I inquired her to halt, but she did not. She got to be irate and began reviling me out and stuff. At that point, I blocked her. I thought that was it, and indeed that was a pretty insane story. Cruel. I figure you never know what may happen once you utilize Craigslist. But that exceptionally same night, Molly really appeared up at my house. I keep in mind hearing a thump at my front entryway. Amid this time, I lived alone in a little house that I leased. When I looked out of the front window, I saw her standing there, and I couldn't accept it. I mean, how did she know where I live? Had she taken after me domestic? I replied the entryway fair to tell her to take off me alone. When I opened up, in spite of the fact that she right away began reviling me out, I told her to take off, and she wouldn't. She began to progress forward, as in the event that to enter my house. At that point, I hammered the entryway closed on her and bolted it. She attempted opening it, and at that point apparently ran absent. I fair know that I saw her running absent off the front step. I expected that she was gone, but I was off base. Likely 30 seconds to a miniature afterward, I listened a commotion at one of the back windows. It was like a slamming clamor. I knew that it was her, and I immediately called the police. At that point, I sat inside and held up. She was beating on the window, and after that she went over and attempted opening up the back door to the house. At one point, I opened up a window and removed absent and cautioned her that I had called the police, but she didn't appear to care. She remained there, moving from windows to entryways and banging on them the whole time until the police appeared up. They were at long last able to halt her. I finished up having to urge a limiting a range against Molly. I truly have no thought why she wouldn't take off me alone. I suspect Medicate utilized, but who knows? This has instructed me to be more cautious when utilizing things like Craigslist or Facebook Commercial Center.